I don't usually cover video games because I just don't deem it, important enough to interrupt my usual flow of politics and everything, even though I am, like, technically I play Square Enix and Monolith Soft games, and, also I play multi-user dungeons occasionally. Those text-based games, yeah, I love them. But I saw this, and this was funny to me because the ongoing joke, it's not serious, it's not meant to be taken seriously about the PlayStation 5, is that it has no games. And it's kind of true in a way, or true-ish, not really actually true, because yeah, there are PlayStation 5 games, but there are like very few that anybody actually wants to play, and like the only one that really comes to mind for me is Final Fantasy 7 R or Final Fantasy 16. Like, these are the only titles, and the gaming library on the PlayStation 5 has turned out to be such a massive disappointment, and it's very obvious that Sony, as a company, you know, look, I love their cell phones, okay? Like, I've made content like Doma Arigato Sony for the cell phone situation, but the video game sector of Sony is completely radically out of touch with everybody, in the gaming space. I mean, it's become really like everybody talks about how like Nintendo is the only one actually releasing games and making them. But I saw this and I started laughing. It was like PlayStation 6 to push the boundaries of video game graphics, and it's like I predicted they were going to do this not that long ago. And it was just like no one cares. No one cares. No one is anybody who is asking for better graphics at this point. Like most of the discussion, even I've seen, has been like, yeah, they've gotten so good at this point that the differences between generations are not that much anymore. It's not that impressive. Nobody wants eye candy to look at. They want fun games, and this is just insane. Like this article came out, and Project Amethyst is a partnership between PlayStation that focuses on innovating machine learning technology for gaming. As the PlayStation 5 has already seen improvements thanks to the efforts, the PlayStation 6 will surely utilize what the two companies learned to bring a graphical experience that will push the boundaries. In a recent expo, like, no one cares. Like, seriously, no. Who is asking for better graphics? They're joking around these days about how the PlayStation 5 doesn't have any games. Like that's I the funny part about this is that, the old story, okay? Back when, we transitioned from the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation generation, it was like what happened back then during that generation was that, all the third-party devs that really mattered, that everybody really fell in love with during the Super Nintendo era, Squaresoft, and that eventually merged with Square Enix and Enix, and all these guys, they wanted to develop games on CDs, and then Nintendo was like, nah, fuck you, we're gonna go cartridges, and just gave them the bird and flipped them off, and look what happened and became of that. Historically, and the PlayStation 1 and 2 won because despite the PlayStation 1 having inferior graphics to the N64, it had a much better content library of games. It won because it had the better selection of games. That's how it won. Now Sony is doing something that is almost as dumb as what Nintendo did back then, which is not the nah fuck you, we're going cartridges, but it's the assumption that all gamers care about is graphics. I play games that don't even have graphics. It's all just text commands on the command line. Like, what are, like, no one cares. I promise you, no one cares.